Business bio. You may be asked to supply a bio of yourself for many different reasons. For instance, for use on the company website when you're making a presentation or speech, or for a company-sponsored charitable initiative. For entrepreneurs, a bio can be a crucial selling tool. Done right, a bio can provide a quick glimpse of who you are, what you value, and what you can do. Introduction. The purpose of a business bio is to tell your professional story in an abbreviated form. A bio is different from a resume in that it tells a story. It is not just a cold record of facts. The point of the story is always one of the following. This person really knows what she's talking about. I think I'll listen to what she has to say. This person's accomplishments are impressive. Acme must be a fine company to hire and retain talent like this. This person has a lot of experience doing the kind of thing I need him to do for me. I feel comfortable that if I hire him, he'll get the job done. Your reader is looking for a quick digest of who you are. Many business people keep several different versions of their bio available, tailored for different uses. Brainstorm about what your readers might be expecting to learn about you. If you're creating a bio for a particular occasion, perhaps a speech at an industry meeting, give some thought to who your readers might imagine you are and how your experience matches up to their expectations. Cast a wide net as you brainstorm. It's easy to overlook things in a long and varied career. Business bios tend to follow a standard organization. Your readers will likely scan your bio rather than read it carefully, so be sure you make the information easy to access. The model outline can guide you. Use a business-like tone as you draft. Bios are usually written in the third person, as though someone else were describing you. Use an objective tone and stick to the facts. It can be difficult to fit all your content into your bio the first time through. Start early and make sure you have time to revise your draft. Show your draft to a few trusted colleagues or friends to get their objective opinion about the bio and to remind you if you've forgotten anything. Model outline. There's no hard and fast format for a business bio. However, most bios follow this general pattern. Opening. State your current position and the major achievements you've been responsible for in this position. Middle section. Provide information about past experience, including previous employment and achievement at past jobs. You may also want to include information about board memberships, community activities, and honors here. Conclusion. Mention your educational background and any publications. Optional. Some bios include personal information such as place of birth and current residence, marital status, children, and hobbies. It's up to you, and sometimes your company, whether you include this information in your bio. Let your company help. If you've been asked to supply a bio for the company website or other publication, try to get a sample bio to model yours on. It can save you a lot of time and angst. Find out if there are specific company policies about what can and cannot be included in a bio. For example, personal information. Do think in terms of your achievements, not just job titles. What have you accomplished in your job? What makes you an interesting speaker or a special asset to your company? Do keep your bio brief, 1 page or less. This becomes more challenging the more senior you are. As you achieve more and more, you may have to make some difficult decisions about what stays in and what gets cut. Let the purpose for which you need the bio be your guide to what to include. Do format your bio for ease of reading. Several short paragraphs are easier to read than one long solid block of text. Use paragraph breaks to indicate changes in topic. Do keep an updated version of your bio on hand at all times. Your story can change quickly, and you'll want to have the latest version on hand when someone requests it. Try to update your bio at least once a year. Do be ready to adapt your bio to different needs. Don't rely on impressive-sounding client lists to take the place of an in-depth bio. Remember, your bio is meant to tell your story, so use the opportunity not just to list facts and figures, but also to show what makes you a particularly valuable person. Don't be offended if the person introducing you or publishing your bio makes significant cuts. Presenters often don't have time to absorb the bio fully, and publishers may need to adapt your bio to conform to everyone else's. Don't reveal proprietary or sensitive information about a client or former employee, no matter how good it makes you look. You may have helped Acme Corporation cut its operating losses by 50%, but Acme may not be thrilled to have the whole world hear how badly they were screwing up before you came along. When in doubt, ask, or simply rephrase the information in a more positive light. Not like this. Gloria Hanlon, Managing Partner. Ms. Hanlon oversees corporate finance, acquisition strategy, and investor relations for White Mountain Ventures. Ms. Hanlon brings over 20 years' experience in global operations, accounting and finance, investment banking, strategic planning, mergers and acquisitions, initial public offerings, and SEC due diligence and reporting. Ms. Hanlon's experience extends from executing turnaround strategies and providing financial management advice for large and small companies, which included Eluctant Inc., 5waves.com, Vellum Express Corporation, Max Bank, Digital Technologies, Arthur Kane Corporation, Manitoba Beverage Corporation, Saunders & Colvin LLP, and Ordelii Finance Services. This bio doesn't really tell us much about Gloria Hanlon, does it? It's more like a laundry list than a person's story. It's great to include an impressive list of names and titles, but it's even better to use that information in a way that explains who you are professionally. Ms. Hanlon is active on several advisory boards, including the Brian Norton Institute, the High School of Economics and Finance, and Repol Inc., an intelligence and securities company for which she is a co-founder and chief financial officer. In 1994, Ms. Hanlon was appointed by the governor of Georgia, Frank Moulton, to be a member of the Operation Legacy Project, responsible for attracting major corporations to the revitalization projects in preparation for the 1996 Centennial Olympics Games in Atlanta. In 1998, the mayor of Newton, Massachusetts, Jeffrey Bonomo, assigned her to head the committee to replicate the High School of Economics and Finance in his district. Ms. Hanlon has been a frequent adjunct professor for business and finance at Boston University. Ms. Hanlon has a BA in accounting and MBA in finance from the University of Pennsylvania. In 1981, Gloria Hanlon completed the Executive Management Program in Mergers and Acquisitions and Corporate Finance at Boston University and is a licensed, certified public accountant in the state of Massachusetts. Ms. Hanlon speaks several languages, including French, Italian, and German. All of this was in one paragraph. Yikes! Who wants to read this huge chunk of text? For your reader's sake, break a long bio like this into smaller, easy-to-read paragraphs. Like this. Gloria Hanlon, Managing Partner. Gloria Hanlon oversees corporate finance, acquisition strategy, and investor relations for White Mountain Ventures. Ms. Hanlon brings over 20 years' experience in global operations, accounting and finance, investment banking, strategic planning, mergers and acquisitions, initial public offerings, and SEC due diligence and reporting. Before joining White Mountain, she was a senior consultant with the Cenemar Group, where she executed turnaround strategies and provided financial management advice for large and small companies, including Eluctant Inc., 5ways.com, Vellum Express Corporation, Max Bank, Digital Technologies, Arthur Kane Corporation, Manitoba Beverage Company, Bell and Colvin LLP, and Erdelii Financial Services. Adding this information about even one prior position provides a context for Gloria's experience with the companies she's worked with. Ms. Hanlon is co-founder and chief financial officer of Repole Inc., a Boston-based intelligence and securities company. This paragraph is about Gloria's day job. Ms. Hanlon is active on several advisory boards, including the Brian Norton Institute and Boston's High School of Economics and Finance. In 1994, she was appointed by the Governor of Georgia, Frank Moulton, to be a member of the Operation Legacy Project, responsible for attracting major corporations to the revitalization projects in preparation for the 1996 Centennial Olympics Games in Atlanta. In 1998, Mayor Jeffrey Bonomo of Newton, Massachusetts, appointed her to head the committee to replicate the High School of Economics and Finance in his district. That paragraph was about her service. This next paragraph is about her education. Ms. Hanlon has been a frequent adjunct professor for business and finance at Boston University, where she completed the executive management program in mergers and acquisitions and corporate finance in 1981. She holds a BA in accounting and MBA in finance from the University of Pennsylvania. Ms. Hanlon is a licensed, certified public accountant in the state of Massachusetts. She speaks several languages, including French, Italian, and German. This bio was broken into 4 different paragraphs. Breaking the bio into paragraphs makes it much friendlier to the eye. It's easier for readers to process information when it's presented in smaller chunks. Bios for the self-employed. Bios for consultants, entrepreneurs, and business owners tend to be more self-promoting than those for business employees. If you're counting on your bio to promote your own consulting practice or other business, it's important to begin your bio with a bang. Stephen Smith has been called a turnaround artist, a corporate miracle worker, and a re-engineering magician for his ability to turn around companies teetering on the brink. His 42 years in corporate strategy, finance, marketing, and operations give him a uniquely broad perspective on the organization and its requirements, with clients ranging from small, family-run businesses to Fortune 500 corporations. Mr. Smith brings an unusually wide range of experience to his management consulting practice. Tip: if you're having trouble with writing your bio, try showing a draft to a colleague who may remind you of things you hadn't thought of and get you back on track. Bios for company websites tend to be 1 paragraph in length and highlight the achievements of the individual that support his or her current position. Jeff Hyman. A senior project director at ART Technology, Jeff is responsible for overseeing all project management activity. Jeff's experience in managing projects is wide and diverse. Jeff has an extensive background in managing large-scale technology projects for clients such as Mutual Investments, MPR Global Communications, Roberts Mason, Redolent Financial, J.R. Norman, CSU Online, and Level 4 Communications. Prior to joining ART Technology, Jeff was a project director at Learn Online, where he oversaw client engagements and led a team of project managers. Jeff's experience also includes 3 years as Director of Software Engineering at Wellesley Interactive and 6 years as a software engineer for PTE. Jeff received his MBA in Finance and Marketing from Holden University and a BS in Computer Science from the University of Minnesota. A biography is considered complete if it merely accounts for 6 or 7 selves, whereas a person may well have as many as 1,000. Virginia Woolf. Speech. Public speaking is said to inspire greater fear than any other challenge or phobia. even spiders. On the other hand, it can also offer great rewards. One way to help overcome your apprehension is to write a speech you're confident about. A good speech can inspire your listeners, enhance your reputation, and build your confidence. The more preparation you put in, the stronger the end product will be. Introduction. The purpose of a speech might be to inspire, educate, persuade, entertain, or some combination thereof. If you've been asked to give a speech at an event, ask the organizers if they have something in mind so that you can tailor your speech to their purposes. The primary audience for a speech is a listener rather than a reader, although you might be asked for a copy of your speech. Make sure your speech is in good condition before you send it out. You may want to go back and make some edits to the text before you share it. As you plan your speech, consider your audience carefully. What do they think and believe? What will they expect from you? What topic would most engage them? Your listeners will give you immediate feedback in the form of attention, applause, or yawns. Think hard about what it will be like to listen to your speech and allow that information to shape what you write. An unsatisfactory speech can be painful for both listeners and speaker alike, so be sure you do your best. Brainstorm widely. Your speech will be more interesting if you've thought carefully about your topic, examined it from different perspectives, and really sorted through what you think and what you want to say. Organize your speech carefully. Your listeners depend on you to signal them the shape of your speech, the introduction of the main idea, transitions between points, and the signal that the speech is drawing to a close, and the actual conclusion. As you draft, keep in mind that the average speech goes about 120 words per minute. Use this to gauge length. Expect to go through several drafts. It's wise to ask a colleague or friend to read a draft of your speech, or, even better, to listen to you practice and give you feedback. As you practice, you'll find areas that you want to revise, for instance, language that looks fine on the paper but doesn't sound right spoken aloud. You might also find missing content, or that your speech is simply too long. Do start your speech writing or presentation project early, especially if you don't have a lot of experience giving speeches. You'll want plenty of time to find the right topic, go through a couple of drafts, and rehearse the speech before you deliver it. Don't leave it all for the last minute. Do make the topic of your speech relevant to your listeners. Select an issue that will engage their attention and give it substantial treatment. Do imagine a model listener. Who is that person you're talking to? What does he know about the topic? What does he care about? What can you share with him that will interest him? Imagining a single listener can be easier than writing a speech for a crowd. Do begin your speech with an attention grabber. You might use an anecdote, a joke, or a quotation. You might also pose a problem that you will solve over the course of the speech. Your objective is to hook your audience and motivate them to continue listening to you. A boring opening usually signals a boring speech. Do let your speech or presentation sound like spoken rather than written language. The language you use in your speech will likely be more formal than the language you use in the office day to day, but you should not sound like you're reading. Practice your speech. When you hit areas that are difficult to say, rewrite them in more conversational language. Do clearly mark transitions for your listeners. Readers have the luxury of going back and rereading if they lose the train of thought in a written piece. Listeners cannot do this. Offer brief summaries of your points as you go along. Clearly state when you're shifting perspectives. Refer back to earlier parts of the speech and let listeners know when you're about to conclude. Do finish with a punch. Provide a conclusion that the audience will remember. Sum up your points, end with a compelling story, or do something else to tie a nice bow on your speech. Leave the audience nodding in agreement or smiling. Do print your speech so it's easy to read. Double space it and use a large font. You don't want to be squinting at the page or losing your place. Don't talk at your audience. Instead, talk to them. As you draft your speech, imagine you are talking to an individual. Don't use fancy words where ordinary ones will do. Aim to impress your audience with the quality of your ideas, not your access to a thesaurus. Don't feel you need to give a complete or comprehensive treatment of the topic. Rather than give an exhaustive account of something, choose a particularly interesting angle and explore it. Plan to talk about no more than 3 main points in your speech. Don't exceed your time limit. Event organizers and listeners alike will appreciate it if you come in slightly under the time limit. Don't think that sneaking in just another minute or 2 will enhance your speech. It's likely just the opposite. Leave them wishing for more, not wishing you'd go away. Speech excerpts. Doug Bain, Boeing's Senior Vice President and General Counsel, delivered a speech about company scandals at the Boeing leadership meeting on January 5, 2006. Opening. Good morning. As I walked up here, I think I heard Boeing Chairman and CEO Jim McNerney mutter, "Here comes Dr. Death." Mr. Bain opens his speech with a joke that acknowledges the seriousness of the situation and engages his listeners. Jim asked me to give you a kind of a candid assessment of our major scandals and how we got there. Mr. Bain uses plain conversational English. My overall message is fairly simple. We, as the leaders of Boeing Company, get to choose what kind of culture we are going to have. And we make these choices every day by what we do and, frankly, what we choose not to do. But the consequences of all those choices are our collective responsibility. Conclusion. The cultural question we need to ask, of course, is, are we going to model the leadership values? And are we going to hold accountable those of us in this room, our subordinates, and even our superiors? I really feel that we've turned the corner and that there's a renewed emphasis and energy on doing the right thing. But the bottom line is, we just cannot stand another major scandal. And all it takes for there to be a next time is one misstep by one employee, and it doesn't really matter whether that employee is a rank-and-file person or somebody in this room. Our jobs, as the leaders of this enterprise, is to establish a culture that ensures that there is no next time. And frankly, the choice is ours. Thank you. Mr. Bain closes the speech, which has been about a difficult topic, on a serious but uplifting note. Excerpted from Transcript of Speech by Boeing's Doug Bain, Seattle Times, January 31, 2006. http://seattletime.com/html/business-technology/2002772424 Boeing transcript 31.html. Sheryl Sandberg, CEO of Facebook, addressed TED Women with the talk, Why We Have Too Few Women Leaders. So, for any of us in this room today, let's start out by admitting we're lucky. We don't live in the world our mothers lived in, where career choices for women were so limited, and if you're in this room today, most of us grew up in a world where we had basic civil rights. But all that aside, we still have a problem, and it's a real problem. And the problem is this. Women are not making it to the top of any profession anywhere in the world. The numbers tell the story quite clearly. 190 heads of state, 9 are women. In the corporate sector, women at the top, C-level jobs, board seats, tops out at 16%. Ms. Sandberg uses a casual, conversational style. She captures the attention of her audience by opening with a statement of a problem that interests them. We also have another problem, which is that women face harder choices between professional success and personal fulfillment. This transition is clearly indicated, making it easier for the listener to follow the speech. A recent study in the U.S. showed that of married senior managers, 2/3 of the married men had children, and only 1/3 of the married women had children. Conclusion. My generation, really, sadly, is not going to change the numbers at the top. We are not going to get to where 50% of the population. In my generation, there will not be 50% of people at the top of any industry. But I'm hopeful that future generations can. I think a world that was run where half of our countries and half of our companies were run by women would be a better world. I have 2 children. I have a 5-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter. I want my son to have a choice to contribute fully in the workforce or at home. And I want my daughter to have the choice to not just succeed, but to be liked for her accomplishments. Thank you. The speech ends on an upbeat, inspiring note. Excerpted from Sheryl Sandberg, transcript of Sheryl Sandberg's TED Women video, Why We Have Too Few Women Leaders, August 9th, 2011. Reprinted at www.85broads.com/public/Meryl-Sheryl-video-we-have-two-few-women-leaders #PROVZU3UDLUEBHKE.99. PowerPoint Presentation. According to one estimate, 30 million PowerPoint presentations occur every day throughout the world. PowerPoint is ubiquitous in schools and workplaces, having supplanted more traditional visual aids like whiteboards, flip charts, and overhead projectors. The term death by PowerPoint was first coined by Angela R. Garber and is widely used to describe the stultifying boredom that a bad PowerPoint presentation can cause. The web is awash in funny examples of terrible PowerPoint slides, but when it's your own presentation at stake, it's no laughing matter. Introduction. Being clear about your purpose is absolutely crucial to creating a successful PowerPoint presentation. Is the presentation purely informational? Are you trying to sell something? If your purpose is vague, your presentation will be too. For PowerPoint presentations, it's probably more helpful to think of your audience than your reader. As you build your slides, think from the point of view of the people who have to look at what you create. What information do they need? What are they expecting from your presentation? How would you feel sitting through this presentation? How can you make the slides easy for the audience to read and ensure that they reinforce your main points? Putting yourself in the shoes, or the seat, of an audience member is an excellent way to guide your preparation of your slides. Before you start, or as you develop your slides, brainstorm your content. Are you presenting complete information? Is anything missing? Think about the order in which you present your information. Organize your presentation for maximum effectiveness and be willing to reorganize your slides if necessary as the presentation develops. You can draft your slides in PowerPoint, in Word, by hand, or whatever way makes it easiest for you to generate content and see the full picture. Be aware that your first draft will probably be too long and too detailed, But don't worry, you can refine your presentation later. As you revise your draft, take note that most of the problems people have in creating successful PowerPoint slides arise from trying to make the format do things it's not really suited to do. PowerPoint was developed as a visual aid to assist when you're making a speech or presentation. Your slides should prompt you as you go through your talk, and they should serve as a visual reinforcement for the audience of your most important ideas. PowerPoint was never intended as a way to communicate large amounts of data. Presenters run into trouble when they start using their slides as data dumps. Think again about your purpose and the needs of your audience, and revise accordingly. Be sure your revision process includes careful proofreading. Do choose the right template or design for your slides. Some organizations have templates available for you to use, or at least a style guide to help you create your slides. If no such template is available, consider asking colleagues if they have a template you can use. Templates are also available through the program itself or from internet sites. There's no sense in reinventing the wheel when you create a PowerPoint presentation. Do choose readable fonts and limit the number of fonts you use. Some fonts are easier to read than others. Select fonts that look clean and clear on your slides. As a general rule, limit yourself to no more than 2 different fonts per slide. If you add more, your slide may look messy and distracting. In addition, you should use fonts that are widely available. Very unusual fonts, even if they're attractive, may not read or align properly on other people's computers if you happen to email your presentation. Stick to a few basic, simple fonts. Do keep text to a minimum. You should present just your main points on your slides. An audience faced with a text-heavy slide will either lose interest immediately or start reading the slide. People can read faster than you can talk. If your audience reads every detail of your content before you present it, they'll stop listening to you. Putting too much content on your slides will inevitably cause your audience to disengage. Do create a leave behind with more detailed information. If you want to ensure your audience has every detail you mentioned in your talk, create and print a fuller version of your presentation and distribute it. Do use animation and sound sparingly and strategically to support the message of your presentation. The golden rule is this: if it enhances the meaning and clarity of your presentation, use it. If it competes with your content, it will distract people. Do, in bullet points, use parallel grammatical constructions to help people follow your ideas easily. Do, use formatting effects like bold and italic sparingly and consistently. Unless they clearly support your message, avoid using these potentially distracting formatting tools. Do proofread your slides very carefully. Ideally, have someone else who is not familiar with the presentation proof it for you. A presentation that contains typos, misspellings, and punctuation errors can be very embarrassing and can undermine your credibility. Tip: the old rubric, tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you've told them, is very good advice for a PowerPoint presentation. Open the presentation with an overview slide to let the audience know what's coming. Coordinate subsequent slides with this overview. Then, create a conclusion page that reinforces the key takeaway points of the presentation. Don't crowd your slides with a lot of text and graphics. Slides with plenty of white space are more inviting and easier to read. Don't write out your entire presentation on your slides. Remember, the slides should contain just your main points. If the whole content is on the slides, why does the audience need you? Don't present graphics or text that are too small or too detailed for the audience to see easily. If you have a key chart or table that is complex, present a simplified version of it on your slide and give the audience the full version, printed on hard copy, to examine more closely. Don't distract your audience with busy backgrounds. PowerPoint offers a lot of built-in graphics and backgrounds, but that doesn't mean you should use them. Don't use meaningless animation. Again, the fact that fancy animation tools are available doesn't mean they're a good idea for your presentation. Use animation when it can help you get your point across more successfully, not animation for its own sake. If people in the audience are sitting there thinking, "Cool animation," then they're not paying attention to your message. Not like this. This presenter has put the entire text of the presentation on the slide. The result is too much text in a tiny, unreadable font. Best practices during phone calls. Virtual teams typically meet by phone. Observing these guidelines can help participants work comfortably and productively on the phone. Introduce yourself. At the beginning of each phone call, be sure to introduce yourself if you are speaking with people you have not met before. Be sure to let others know of your role on the project. Identify yourself when you begin to speak. As the call continues, particularly if you are working with remote colleagues you do not know well, identify yourself when you begin to speak to avoid confusion about who is speaking. State roles and responsibilities. Ensure that every team member on the call understands what their role and responsibility is on the project. Set expectations. Set expectations at the beginning of each call, including how long you expect the call to last and what you expect to accomplish. Review act-in items and send out summary list. At the conclusion of the call, review any action items. After the call ends, the project manager should send around a list of agreed-upon action items with deadlines to the entire team. This slide contains 4 different fonts, creating a busy and unattractive look. There are several typos on this slide. The presenter likely didn't notice them because of the density of the slide, but someone in the audience is sure to spot them. And the presenter has tried to make the slide more interesting by selecting a background from the PowerPoint's background library. But this background is too much on this already busy slide. Like this. Best practices during phone calls. Bullet point. Introduce yourself. Bullet point. Identify yourself when you begin to speak. Bullet point. State roles and responsibilities. Bullet point. Set expectations. Bullet point. Review action items. This much improved slide contains just the main points, allowing the presenter to elaborate on the details. It's much easier for the audience to scan. This version of the slide contains only 2 fonts, both easy to read, which creates a cleaner, more inviting look. The background image is not distracting. It adds interest to the slide and it's relevant to the topic of building global virtual teams. Not like this. Conclusion. Keys to successful virtual teaming. Bullet point. Strong team building. Bullet point. Choose the right communication method. Bullet point. Best practices during phone calls. Bullet point. Make a connection with your colleagues. Bullet point. Cultural challenges. Bullet point. Stay open to feedback. The bullet entries are grammatically inconsistent, which makes it harder for the audience to grasp the message. Some of the words on the slide have been bolded, but the pattern seems to be random. Elements that are formatted in this way should be parallel and consistent. And about the pattern in the background. What are those things in the background? Are they fish? Why fish? Maybe they're leaves. No, they really look like fish. I'd like some fish tacos. I wonder where I could get fish tacos around here. And your audience has just missed the conclusion of your presentation. This fossil fish background comes with the PowerPoint software, but that doesn't mean it's appropriate for your presentation. Be sure your backgrounds, graphics, and animations help get your message across rather than distracting the audience. Like this. Conclusion. Bullet point. Build a strong team. Bullet point. Communicate appropriately. Bullet point. Foster team connections. Bullet point. Address cultural misunderstandings. Bullet point. Encourage feedback. The presenter has chosen a neutral background which adds interest without distracting the audience. The bullet entries are grammatically parallel, each beginning with an imperative verb. As a result, the concluding message is clear and easy to remember. 3 keys to successful presentations. As you develop the slides for your presentation, consider how the audience will experience them. Your slides should engage your audience rather than simply being a crutch for you. Don't put too much text on your slides. Effective slides are scanned, not read. Use your slides to pique the audience's interest. Put just your key ideas on the slide, not your entire talk. Make the audience curious about what you'll say next. Use your slides to reinforce your most important points. If information is both heard and read, your audience will retain it better. Questionnaire. A questionnaire is a kind of survey that's especially useful for collecting data from large numbers of people. Conducting a survey can be a significant investment of time and resources, and it's critical to take the time to design your questionnaire carefully. Most business-related questionnaires are conducted online, where responses are easy to collect and tabulate, though some organizations still use paper surveys. Commercial websites like SurveyMonkey and Zoomerang allow you to create surveys free and will tabulate the results for you. Introduction. The purpose of a questionnaire is to gather information from multiple people. Think carefully about what information you want to collect through your questionnaire. What problem are you trying to solve? How will you use the information you gather? The more specific you are about your purpose, the more helpful your questionnaire will be. Keep your reader foremost in your mind as you design your survey. Typically, survey respondents are not required to cooperate with you, so you should make it as easy and pleasant as possible for them to assist you in completing the questionnaire. Brainstorming questions can help you pinpoint your exact purpose. It can be helpful to solicit questions from your colleagues. You will likely come up with more questions than you need. As you work, cull them down to only the essentials. Organize your questions in a logical order, progressing from the general to the specific, or from factual to attitudinal, depending on the content of your questionnaire. Writing survey questions can be tricky, so you should plan to go through multiple drafts of your questionnaire. Share your draft with colleagues and revise according to their feedback. When you have a draft you're happy with, it's wise to pilot the survey to a small test group and interview them about how the survey went. Revise again before you send the questionnaire out to the respondents. Types of survey questions. Consider carefully the types of questions you want to use in your survey. There are advantages and drawbacks to each. Closed-ended questions give the respondent a limited set of possible responses. They may be yes-no questions, multiple-choice questions, or questions to be answered on a rated scale, for example, from 1 to 5. Closed-ended questions provide results that are easy to tabulate and analyze. Open-ended questions, on the other hand, provide respondents with blank space to write out their answer. They allow the respondent more scope in their answers and can provide interesting data. However, they cannot be tabulated and analyzed in the same way as closed-ended questions. As you design your questionnaire, think ahead to how you want to tabulate, analyze, and report the results, and create your questions accordingly. Do keep your questionnaire as brief as possible. In most cases, respondents are volunteering their time, and the longer the questionnaire, the less likely they are to complete it. Be sure you're asking only the essential questions. Do use simple language. Difficult vocabulary and complex sentence structure can make questions hard to understand. Do write short sentences. Questions become more difficult to understand and answer when they get too long. Do begin the questionnaire with easy, interesting questions. Save the more difficult or intimidating questions for later. Do arrange your questions in a logical order, proceeding from the general to the specific. Do consider carefully the kind of questions to use. Closed-ended questions are easier to tabulate than open-ended questions. Do use a consistent rating scale. If you are using questions that have a rating scale for an answer, keep that scale consistent across the entire survey. Do test your questionnaire before you send it out. Try to get a test group of 10 to 15 people. Interview them after they've taken the questionnaire to find out if any of the questions were hard to understand or any of your questions were leading. Don't write leading questions. Take care to phrase your questions in a neutral way without hinting at the answer you would like to receive. If you're unsure, ask someone to read your questions for you. Don't use jargon or abbreviations that your readers might not understand. Keep your language as simple as possible. If you do have to use complex language or abbreviations, make sure you define them. Don't write questions using double negatives. They can be difficult to understand. Don't write questions that are about more than one thing. For instance, the question, "Do you find weekly meetings and monthly debrief sessions useful?" should be split into two separate questions. Don't ask questions about information that's difficult to recall. For instance, asking questions about the distant past is less likely to yield good data than asking questions about more recent events. Not like this. In order to improve our services in the future, Canyon Retreat Conference Center is requesting your assistance in completing this brief questionnaire about your stay with us. Thank you for your participation. 1. What is the frequency of your attending conferences on a yearly basis? Please check 1. 1 to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 10, more than 10. This question is awkward and a little difficult to understand. 2. Of those conferences, how many take place at a commercial hotel versus a purpose-built conference facility? Please check 1. 1 to 2. This answer should include 0. 3 to 5. 6 to 10. More than 10. 3. What do you perceive as the advantages of a purpose-built conference facility versus a commercial hotel? Please check all that apply. Staff more understanding of and more responsive to guest needs. Conference rooms more comfortable. Better acoustics. Better climate control. More comfortable guest rooms. This is a leading question. Perhaps the respondent doesn't perceive any advantages at all, but there is no way for him to indicate that. 4. Which disadvantages of a commercial hotel are least important to you? Please rank in order 1 to 4. This question contains a double negative and is difficult to understand, and a scale like this should specify what the numbers 1 and 4 mean, most or least important. Staff not attuned to needs of conference guests. Poor acoustics in conference rooms. Too cold in conference rooms. Lack of suitable areas for socializing. 5. What is your favorite part of the Canyon Retreat experience and why? 6. If you would recommend Canyon Retreat to a friend, why? 7. What part of the Canyon Retreat experience would you most like to be improved and why? Questions 5 through 7 are open-ended questions. It's fine to have as many open-ended questions as you like, but you should be aware that it is more difficult and time-consuming to tabulate their answers. Like this. In order to improve our services in the future, Canyon Retreat Conference Center is requesting your assistance in completing this brief questionnaire about your stay with us. Thank you for your participation. 1. How many conferences do you attend every year? Please check 1. 1 to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 10, more than 10. Phrased this way, the question is much easier to understand. 2. Of those conferences, how many take place at a commercial hotel versus a purpose-built conference facility? Please check 1. 0 to 2, 3 to 5, 6 to 10, more than 10. The scale now allows for an answer of 0. 3. Which features of a purpose-built conference facility appeal to you? Please check all that apply. Staff more understanding of and responsive to guest needs. Conference rooms more comfortable. Better acoustics. Better climate control. More comfortable guest rooms. None of the above. The question has been rewritten so that it does not lead the reader. The response, none of the above, has been added. Rewriting this question also allows the writer to eliminate the confusing question 4. 5. What is your favorite part of the Canyon Retreat experience and why? 6. What part of the Canyon Retreat experience would you most like to be improved and why? The previous question 6 has been eliminated. It was close in meaning to question 5 and didn't justify the additional effort required to tabulate its answers.